Is the marginalization of Dalits in India going up or going down? Are Dalits more empowered today than they were in the past? And which way will India's vast Dalit population vote in the 2019 general elections? Joining us at the India Today South Conclave, I want to introduce first Suraj Yengde. He is a PhD at Howard University, studying at the Kennedy School. He is also taking classes. He is the first Dalit PhD at Harvard from an African university. Welcome. With us also Pallam Raju, senior Congress leader, and Krishna Sagar Rao. Because I want to start by asking Suraj about whether you feel that the condition of Dalits in India is getting better. Is their marginalization decreasing, or is their situation getting worse?
Just about 2 days ago, Rahul, a 10th grader, a Dalit girl, Sujali Jatov, was returning from a school, and on her way back, two rogues stopped her, poured gasoline, petrol on her, and burnt her alive. Again, a day ago, in Bede, a Dalit boy and a non-Dalit girl were in relationship and married, and he was hacked to death in broad daylight. If this is indicative of something, we are talking about the retrograde policies and thinking of caste existing in each other's mind who's sitting here, because caste has become a mechanism to endorse one's superiority, and if someone poses a challenge to that, you witness a brutal, violent death. So and again, since independence, if you look at it, caste has been central to formation of India's republic. Five cabinets, and there was no Adivasis sitting in the Congresses. 3 Nehrus, 1 Shastri, and 1 Indira Gandhi. There was no Adivasi involved in the cabinet. So this is the kind of a casteism we have inherited, and we continue to parade around in everyday circles in our conversations, and caste today has been relegated to one nasty thing of reservation or merit. The entire Dalit humanity is not been in concern. When we talk about caste, the second thing an urban or semi-urban or a rural person will say is, oh, they got this free-loading reservations, and that's it. Nobody knows what lays underneath, what lays beyond. And of course, Dalits have been confined as an electoral coinage. No one looks at Dalit as a human, as a fellow Indian. It's always to look and calculate them as someone fitting into the numbers of electoral politics.
Krishna Sagar Rao, the Dalits of this country are increasingly more literate than they were in the past. They are seeking to assert themselves, and when they do, there is a violent backlash of the kind that we saw in Una. We saw that with Rohit Vemula. Respond to Suraj's opening comments about how the political class looks at the Dalit community as a vote bank and not as individuals with specific requirements, aspirations, and needs that the political community needs to look at.
Rahul, I think this discussion is not political, it's more social. And the roots of this issue also lie socially. I think it is drawn completely even away from the independent India. But once we got independence till today, no matter who was in charge in terms of the government, they have done everything they could to ensure that the rights are protected for the oppressed class. Whether it's reservations, whether it is atrocities, prevention acts, laws, or whether it is representation in People's Act with reservations in contesting so that they can be well represented. So the measures have been taken. So I'm not going to get partisan on that. Whether it is Congress, Janata Party or BJP, we have either got this into the play or continued them as a government. Now, coming to the continuity of atrocities on Dalits, it's very sad. It's heartbreaking. But I don't think what is being reported is exactly what is actually happening. It could be even underreporting. And sometimes it could be even over-reporting. So the perception which is being built today is more political than actually social.
Okay, so let Suraj respond to this, that in 5 years there's been one Una. There is one Rohit Vemula who committed suicide. And that cannot be held as a reflection of how India is treating its Dalits. The political class will allege that this is being done by vested interests for fulfilling their own needs, catering to the Dalit vote bank, as an example, to feed the factor of marginalization, as opposed to looking at how Dalits are more integrated and are better educated and, relatively speaking, better off than they were. Yes, there is a problem, but you have to see where India and the community is coming from.
India carries this shameful guilt, and they should be ashamed of them, that they send one Dalit every day to clean your own shit. We can't stare at our own shit for 2 seconds. Raise your hand, anybody here who can stare at your own shit for more than 5 seconds. But we have treated our own Indians to get into the sewer so they can clean your shit, and so we can live in a very sanitized India. One Dalit dies in sewer every 5 days. Is that what we are talking about? When we talk about atrocities, these atrocities are mentioned, and the gentleman next to me is saying it's been sometimes over-presented. If we talk about the social or educational aspects, Narendra Modi government has not released 10,200 crores scholarships meant for scheduled caste students. 2,300 crores scholarship meant for scheduled tribe students. And in addition to that, the reservation that we all parade about, there is no filling of vacancies. The Central University Teachers Association recently, it's in the news, 50% of the seats are not even fulfilled. And when we talk about this, the whole notion of meritocracy has been plundered upon them. In addition to this, when we look at the teachers, less than 1%, 0.83 Muslims teacher, female Muslim teacher are teaching in our universities or our colleges. Dalit faculties are close to 5%, Adivasi 2%. And when we say this disproportionate, the people who identify themselves as upper caste Hindu, and this is a record of All India Higher Education Survey of 2016, 70% of our faculty, 70 is upper caste Hindu. Now, if this is a representative of India, then we are definitely talking about a casteist India which doesn't educate its student, and even in the political as well as media discourses, we don't talk about this.
Pallam, Raju, this is a very compelling argument I want you to build on, that reservation per se, and you've been education minister, means nothing unless you work the back channels to ensure that there are people who are capable of benefiting from that reservation. At the IITs, for example, so many of the seats reserved for scheduled castes go begging because there are very few students who can apply, there are very few who can get through, and there are even fewer who can stay, compete, and last out the whole term.
Let me start from the original question and the social issue that we are trying to address. The Dalits have been a community that have been historically oppressed across centuries. And I think once the Republic was formed, we did try to rectify the wrongs through various means. And I think it's been the attempt of successive governments. The reality in India today is we live in several layers. And I think there are parts of the country where those historical biases are still there. Manual scavenging still happens. Dalits are still victimized. But I think if the original point of the question is, are Dalits a better lot today? I would say yes. Because they are much more informed, they are much more organized, they are much more cohesive, they are much more assertive in establishing their rights, especially the enlightened lot. But there are biases that still exist in society, and I think they are reflected in various parts of our
Okay, Suraj, respond to this. I think Pallam
Raju
makes an important point. No, one second. I want him to, whether he accepts or rejects the assertion that given where we are coming from, Dalits are more cohesive, better organized, more empowered, and therefore less marginalized than they have been at any point in time in millennia.
See, Mr. Raju's comment is oxymoronic. First, it says that Dalits have made progress, and on the second say there are biases. How do we account to this? Either there has to be a progress without bias, or there has to be bias without progress.
It's not a binary. There is relativity involved.
I agree with you, Rahul. So when we engage, let's say when Dalits are being organized, and they have no other option. And what this current or previous political dispensation has done is, they have withdrawn the Dalit humanity completely, and they have made a tokenized political class. And because it's a tokenized representation that we see, We have, and it has become a discourse that Dalits have been doing well off. Record says not more than 3% Dalits graduate with a university degree. When we talk about IIMs and IITs, these institutions, for example, IIMs have been made autonomous, meaning the director is the boss, the director is the king, you can take the decision the way you want. And IIM, shamefully, all the IIMs have not admitted any Dalit or Adivasi student into its doctoral program, which is called FPM program. In addition to that, and there's no record to that, and when we look at the faculties, of the 496 whatever faculties, overwhelmingly only 25 to less percentage belong to SC, ST, OBC, which is close to 85% of the population.
Pallam, Raju, respond to this very powerful argument about tokenism. You know, a Dalit as president, the likes of Suraj will allege, is tokenism. A Dalit as minister, people will allege, is tokenism. That it is not genuine empowerment, because you need to ensure that a message doesn't go out that they're completely out of the power equation. You will find one Dalit and put him in a position of power to send the message to the Dalit community that, hey, we are taking care of your needs. It's not genuine empowerment. You're accused, the political class is accused of tokenism.
I will definitely like to concede to that point, that there is tokenism in politics, not only to the Dalits, but, you know, to certain categories of people. But having said that, I think there is a genuine intent to uplift the community. And I think Suraj has been specifically addressing the issue of the faculty positions not being filled by Dalits. You know, I think, Suraj, you must also acknowledge that we live in a competitive society. I'm not saying that there aren't any biases. There certainly are biases across institutions, across strata. But I think when we are talking about institutions like the IITs and IIMs, there is a point beyond which you cannot compromise in the quality of the faculty that you're trying to draw. I'm sure that there are brilliant people in Dalits who are out there, and I think it is a question of finding that match or that person wanting to be a
That's a good point. He's been education minister. He says, you can't force me to make as IIM faculty someone as professor who's not qualified to teach financial analytics, cost accounting, pick any subject, unless he knows what to teach. Whether he, just because he's Dalit, he can't be given a job.
That's why we are saying, incorporate them into the system, get them into pipeline, get them into the doctoral programs. And institutions, as a state institutions, have responsibility to go back to the community, try to elevate and try to target. It's not going to happen within 50, 70 years of independence that Dalits who have been outcast and wretched and humiliated and degraded will suddenly one day become the director. We have to follow the procedures. And of course, if you look at the record, if you go to schools and IITs have been cesspool for the Dalits. IITs have not been encouraging the so-called institutes of national importance. And as a matter of fact, 26,000 plus suicides happen, not only Dalits, but students across within the institutions of higher learning. So if this is any indicative and not necessarily only Dalits, that means education institutes are not empowering students to think creatively. We have a very Brahminic system where the idea, where the professorial staff is not the Dalit, your support and mentorship is not Dalit. I was in Gandhinagar recently, and a Dalit is afraid to own him or herself up. They are just afraid. You can be a Brahmin and you can be proud, you can be a Muslim, you can be XYZ, you can still own it up. But tell me in public discourse, how many Dalits just could come up and own it up?
But let's see, Suraj, what happened when a Dalit got an opportunity to become Chief Minister of India's biggest state. She went and built statues of herself. That's not something to be proud of. When you get an opportunity of a kind which no one from your community has got for centuries, you go and build your own statues. How is that empowerment? How is that bringing Dalits and members from your community into the pipeline?
Rahul, I think she built statues, but she also built 4 universities. I think the kind of progress that she has done, and she has ushered the kind of confidence, I think the development projects done by, for example, Mayawati, has not been as focused as much as she holding a purse and building a statue. That one monument, and similar when we talk about the Statue of Unity, and, the whole Chinese labor being deployed. Same argument is not applied here, when in fact the labor and indigenous labor. And so what I'm saying is we are still casteist in our own approach, where we try to find loopholes. There is one crack, there is one fissure, and then that's it. That's the representative of everything. Rest of the work, which could be a swath of ocean, is not being discussed as positive.
Krishna, when Mayawati builds her own statue, it is a problem. When the BJP spends 2,800 crores buying a statue, building a statue, mostly made in China, then it becomes a big problem.
Say, you're comparing apples and oranges because Statue of Unity is an icon and building your own statue while you're alive is a different story altogether. Now, my friend here, Suraj, I don't know
No,
where
but you
he's...
must respond to this, Suraj. Mayawati building her own statue cannot be compared with Modi building a statue of Sardar Patel.
I mean, Modi had his, I mean, not him, but the temples are built of Modi's. You know, people worship him. We have the news out, you know.
No, but Modi didn't build his own temple.
Right. So
Mayawati built her own statue and
So-
spent hundreds of crores doing so.
the point is, when we talk, and we have to look at this also in women empowerment, first of all. She is a Dalit woman, and Dalit woman is the most wretched and degraded being, you know. A statue of a Dalit woman being paraded openly is just not sitting in the consensus. This Dalit woman is actually, if not her, is being raped, is been undergoing torturous regime.
And many Dalits have said this as well, Krishna Sagar Rao, that having Mayawati statue there is a sign of empowerment. You know, if there had been other Dalit women before her, you could have said, okay, why didn't she build a statue of somebody else? But who else is the one Dalit woman she could have built a statue of? And many in the Dalit community think of that statue as a sign of empowerment. In the heart of Lucknow, in the capital of India's biggest political state, you've got a statue of a Dalit woman. That by itself is empowerment.
I really wish the people of Uttar Pradesh could have built the statue of Mayawati instead of she building with public money. Keeping that aside, the rationale behind Suresh's argument falls flat because he's trying to defend even the indefensible. He is not even saying that that's wrong to do with the public money and then go on with the Dalit cause. So what happens here is you're trying to justify things just for being acrimonious, being angry. Your angry needs to be justified. It should not be misplaced. I completely understand the
This is
anger.
a good point, and we saw this very recently in Agenda Aaj Tak, which we had in the capital this week itself, where we had this young man, Chandrasekhar Azad. He's now dropped Ravan from his name. He just seemed like a very angry young man. And the BJP spokesperson has a point that the anger needs to be channelized. You know, you can't just be angry because I'm angry. That anger needs to be channelized. And while he was very angry, how channelized was that young Dalit's anger?
It depends on how we define anger. Is anger spewing hatred? Is anger divisive? Or is it an anger of sympathy and empathy? Is it an anger that is extension of a love? It's a caring love that we see through this anger. And anger is not necessarily negative when it comes from the oppressed person. It is an anger, it is an anguish that is convincing, that is trying to make its case. And if you're not going to listen to us, our anger is going to come out. Take it or leave it. You're going to see it either on streets or either on either of the spaces which are occupied.
Krishna Sagar Rao, when you dictate dietary choices, when you impede economic imperatives of the Dalit community, when you tell them what to eat and what not to eat, you are pushing that anger. You are foisting upper caste dietary choices on India's Dalit community.
If at all you're talking about anti-cow slaughter laws, it is not we who have made the 1964. It is the Congress which has brought in the anti-cow slaughter laws. But we will be, stoned for it. And Mr. Suraj will not take 2 words to do that. See, Mr. Suraj today speaks so eloquently and so graciously, with anger, of course, and the anger is justified. But how did he come here? I don't know where he studied, but if he's saying that Dalits didn't get empowered, now he's a symbolism of Indian Dalit empowered.
No, but
He's now in
I think that's a
Harvard.
facile argument. He just told you 3% of the Dalits managed
what?
to complete education.
No, that is why I'm
the
saying-
Ambedkar went abroad and studied way back in the early part of the last century.
No, it's all right. I'm not saying all of them
No,
are
you can't say
empowered.
just because he's educated,
I'm-
he's at Harvard, and therefore what about any?
Rahul, what I'm saying is, don't completely strike down the patience, persistence, and what the Indian nationals have allowed the affirmative action to stay.
No.
We did not question an
Krishna
untime
Sagar Rao, I'm
bound.
sure everyone sitting here would have noticed when he doesn't like a question, he just sidesteps it and pretends he didn't hear it and answers a completely different question.
mean,
the
I'm
question is, one second,
I'm
why is the ruling dispensation foisting upper caste dietary choices on India's Dalit community?
We didn't. That's the answer. We didn't and we never will. But I'm telling you once again, this country has been behind the affirmative action without being time bound. We never questioned the timing of reservations or timeline
I
of
must ask this
reservations.
question because
This
even
entire
when
nation
Baba
has
Saheb
standing beside
Ambedkar
Dalit brothers,
envisioned
and
reservation,
we want
the
them
idea-
to be empowered.
The idea was that this would be time bound, possibly for a decade. You empower Dalits and then you end reservation. You know, I'm sure a majority of the audience sitting here in Vizag is upper caste. And I'm also certain that most people watching would be upper castes. And all of them would say, how long would reservation last? This can't be done permanently. And while it is absolutely correct that we want to empower Dalits, upper caste meritorious students will think that this is very unfair to them. As a PhD fellow, how long do you think we should continue with reservation?
For as long as untouchability exists in this country. In Delhi alone, there was a survey done, and in UP also, close to 60% women and men folk acknowledge that we freely practice untouchability. 39%
What survey are you talking about? 60% of Delhi
this is an economic and political weekly. 39% of them said, some of people we know.
That's a publication. What survey is this? EPW is a publication.
Yes, and in that the survey was done by 3 scholars, which is available on the internet. As long as untouchability exists,
I find that a bit bizarre. 60% of Delhi is telling you they believe in untouchability.
You just look up. I'm just not making this up. I can provide citations and all. Well, let's keep this argument for the side for the fact check. How long will the reservation last? For as long the caste system exists in this country. Tomorrow, make a project of elimination of caste system. Make sure that the people who are
How do we do that? How do we eliminate the caste system?
First, Ambedkar has indoctrinated that into annihilation of caste and mentioned that where the sources of castes, from where the caste emerges, has to be dismantled. Because here, the ideas of Shastras are being so sacrilegious that people are afraid to even take a call that this could be something we should acknowledge and work towards it. And by the way, Ambedkar did not envision it for a decade. It's very misinformed. I had posted it that he was of the same argument that the reservation should continue for as long as the people are still not empowered, right? What that means is, still we are unhappy with some section of Dalit.
One second. Why should your son get into St. Stephen's or SRCC because he's a Dalit? If you've been to Harvard, he has absolutely no business. If he gets through because he's your son and he's cracked the exam and got the numbers, absolutely by all means. But right now, and 20, 30, 40 years later, I don't know if you have a son, so I don't want to comment on that. But how is that fair? Why, he still gets the benefits of reservation.
I think, Rahul, again, this goes to the very grain of escapade, meaning the people that we see around us becomes a representative of the entire reservation system. Meaning, if we have seen, let's say, the privileged Dalits, or which is, by the way, very extreme mini minority, and by the way, reservation is not an economic upliftment program, it's actually a social empowerment program. And when it comes to social empowerment, we still have discrimination persisting in the society. That aside...
Now, you're not answering my question. My question is very simple. Why should your son get into a top educational institute just because he's Dalit?
And that's what I'm saying. We should do, and a serious survey should be done, how many privileged Dalits, and I'm telling with confidence, encourage their children to get reservation. And I'm talking about mini minority. But the whole reservation debate is happening to this, where this section is been focused and the anti-reservation parade focused on this. Whereas the whole majority, which is still remaining, this girl that was just burnt alive, 10th grader, those sections which are desperately in need, that argument is not informing our conscience. That means we still have problems with this kind of, and this kind of representation of this minority examples is actually becoming distortive. And that's what I'm saying. The Dalit is not a monolithic whole, right? If Mayawati is doing something, I don't have to answer for her. Similarly, if a Brahmin minister is doing, do you ask Rajdeep Sardesai, Saraswat God Brahmin, he had paraded his caste identity and congratulated Parrikar of every other Brahmin. So Rajdeep, tell me what do you think about other Brahmin? Or Kanwal, what do you think about belong to your caste? And I think this has become a wholesome responsibility. And where, why, and when do we become Indian is primary.
That's a good point, because a young leader like Rahul Gandhi, Pallam Raju, had the option of saying, I am Indian first. Yet he chooses to say, I am a Kashmiri Pandit, I am a Dattatreya Brahman, and that's my Gotra. Ambedkar spoke of the annihilation of caste. A young leader like Rahul Gandhi should say, I don't care about, I can say I don't care about caste, but I don't need any votes from anybody. But why can't Rahul Gandhi say that? Would that not be setting the right example? Would that not be empowering India's Dalits, tribals, saying here's a leader who says he doesn't believe in caste?
I think you're bringing it back to the point from the previous debate. I've said it at that time also that
You didn't like the question, then you don't like
Rahul
it now.
Gandhi has always been saying that I'm Indian first, my caste is Indian, my religion is Indian, but nobody heard it. Till BJP drove him to a point where he had to show his, identity according to Manusmriti. Okay? But anyway, I mean, that's not we're digressing from the point. And I think Suraj is, has a lot of pent-up frustration that things aren't happening fast enough for the larger community than a small section of people. And I think that's an issue that we need to address. I think there is still a lot more work to be done for the downtrodden communities, for the weaker sections, and I think we are not paying adequate focus on that.
Who, according to you, Suraj, is better for India's Dalit community? The Congress, the BJP, or a Dalit party?
I think a Dalit party will be the best option, because then if we have to choose, we are asking to choose between which is the lesser evil.
Which is the lesser evil?
Evil.
No, so which is the lesser evil?
Evil is evil. I don't want to quantify the
No,
level
but which
of
is the lesser
gradation.
evil?
Again, if I say this, it will be an endorsement of something. I would just keep it at that.
No, I'm asking you a straight question. Which is the lesser evil, the Congress or the BJP?
Depends on the time. Right now, the biggest evil for Dalit community is BJP because of all these policies that has been happening. And if you go into time scale, 20 years ago, it was Congress. Meaning,
No, we are here and now.
Now
In the build-up to the 2019 election for India's Dalit community, which is the lesser evil?
affirmative, BJP.
BJP.
But then again, let me
That there is a patent, inherent upper caste bias to the worldview of the BJP and the RSS would be an allegation that's thrown your way.
Close to 50% of cabinet ministers of Modi are Brahmins. How do we define that?
See.
Less than 4% of the population.
Rahul, I think the question was for me. While, as I said, I empathize with Suraj's anger, it's not very accurate, because if BJP is such a party, why would we elect a president of the country today who's the biggest Dalit face in
Okay,
the entire...
Suraj,
it's not
respond to that.
tokenism. It's not tokenism, number one. Number two...
No,
now-
one second.
Wait a minute.
That's a good
Ra-
point. Let him
me
respond.
address.
We're having a debate. One second. They made a Dalit a president, showing that at the highest position in this country, they're willing to make the effort. They didn't put a Nagpur Brahman, they put a Dalit.
And we are still the enemy, according to Suraj.
And what happens? By the way, this was again highest of tokenization, where Meera Kumar was again proposed. This whole Dalit tokenization was at its par to the top post. And what happens to the Honorable President when he visits one of the temples in Orissa?
Rahul, can I say...
He's been booed out. A president of India cannot even worship in the sanctimonious space of a temple.
We don't know if that
The
happened.
first thing-
One
Come on,
second.
the reports is live.
The reports can say...
Rahul.
One second. Harvard fellows shouldn't be peddling fake news. The president's office denied any such thing happened. We did a fact check on it. The president's office denied that he was booed at Puri.
Rahul, what is remarkable is Suraj did not even say thank you. He did not even say that I acknowledge that the president is a Dalit and, it has
He wants you
happened
to
actually.
thank him for
He did
making
not
a
even
Dalit president.
He did not even acknowledge.
Listen to his counter.
We need a Dalit who will speak to the cause of the most oppressed, most poor working class person. We don't need a tokenized Dalit to be represented and slapped on
President
his
of
face.
India is a
We
token?
need a Dalit who will usher the voice of the most depressed from the community, who will give a statement when Sujali is been burnt alive 2 days ago, who will take a statement stand against this very Brahminical system that he's been opting into. If that is the Dalit we put into, my first thanks goes
See,
to him.
Rahul, the hypocrisy here and the double talk here is, on one end he says he wants to end casteism. And the other, he continues to protect his clan. And he wants to be completely isolated
But
from
that's
the
a very
mainstream.
upper caste way of looking at it. He just told you, don't think of Dalits as a monolith. Look at the number of castes, communities, subcastes involved. And when you say he wants to protect his clan, you are guilty of exactly what Suraj has been accusing you
I'm
of.
not. Because I am saying, when you asked him whether it's BJP or Congress or a Dalit party, what did he say? Why I'm saying it is, when your macro identity is Indian, and when you want to demolish the caste, if it were for us, Rahul, I'm saying it right on this platform, if it were for us, and if we have the ability to do it constitutionally, I don't know, we would ban the caste. This is BJP. We would ban the caste. Now let him say that once they ban the caste, then he would say that all of us are together.
Krishna Sagar Rao, be careful about what you say.
I'm saying
because
it.
the last person who said it was
I am
Mohan
saying
Bhagwat,
it.
and we saw what happened in the Bihar
It doesn't
elections
matter.
after that.
This is BJP. BJP believes the macro identity is Indian. Everything else is subsidiary to us. And everything else we believe Congress has marginalized on it, capitalized on it, made it into vote banks, created walls, and ensured that they have these people vote for them, but they haven't. They have divided and disempowered. We are uniting and empowering people. That is why, if it is left to us, we would ban the caste.
Ban the caste.
So begin with the priests, who by default, by the very virtue of them being Brahmin, become the priest. Why don't we have a regulatory authority on that? Second thing, now Modi's cabinet has close to 50% Brahmin cabinet ministers. Why don't the BJP say next cabinet will be 50% Dalit or Adivasi together? If this is something that
We don't choose our ministers on the basis of caste, Mr. Suraj.
You do. That's why
maybe
50%
you didn't come to
ministers
India
are
very
single-handedly
often.
Brahmins.
We choose our ministers on the basis of competence. We also remove
That means
ministers
Dalits are
on the
incompetent.
basis of their competence.
That means
we-
Dalits are incompetent.
We are running out of time on this program. It's very interesting to have a young, fresh Dalit voice come and speak to us in the manner that you have. But what's with the hair?
And I think Rahul mistook him as a rapper. A PhD scholar.
That's the update. I think this is the new Dalit for you. The Dalit that you're used to view and see and observe, which is caricatured in your mind, which is someone who is struggling, who's your beggar, who is trying to clean your toilets, who's trying to clean utensils, your help, your mate. New Dalit is educated, is aware, is conscious about his identity, and very proud, can stand in middle of the crowd and say, yes, I'm a Dalit and I'll fight for my community until the last person of the person who's oppressed my community is liberated.
We are proud to have Suraj here. We are very proud to have you here on the
This has
panel.
been a fantastic conversation. I'm sure all of you have enjoyed this as well. Can we have a very warm round of applause for Suraj Yengde, Krishna Sagar Rao, and Pallam Raju. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do stay on stage while I call upon Mr. Gopal Ratnam, Vice President Hitachi, to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to our panelists this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, would we please raise a warm round of applause for our panelists? Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's power into our next session this evening. And to take it from here, I'd like to call upon my colleague.